December 17th, 2014. And yesterday, I described some of the things that happened at Ballinger's. And I thought about correcting or clarifying a few more things last night because I had several things come to mind and things that I was remembering after making those video clips. So, but I wrote some of them down, some of the things that I thought about, and I'm going to just briefly mention some of those things first right now. One thing I said is that Alvaro Pardo had participated with them there when I was lying down in a room at George and Janet Bechtol's house. But I actually need to clarify that is possibly not true, because what I actually, I said that, and then when I was thinking about it, I sort of remembered more about the entire situation. What I remember is that someone who resembled Alvaro Pardo was an individual who did that to me. However, at the time that it happened, I remember that the Bechtols and a lot of people were saying, yeah, and Alvaro Pardo did that. And they knew who he was, and they knew that I knew what his name already. This is when I was a kid. So, you know, I was, in that instance, I was maybe 10 years old, between the ages of 8 and 10. But I knew when they said that that was Alvaro Pardo, I knew that it had not, or at least my impression as a kid at that time was it had not been Alvaro Pardo, actually. And why were they attempting to say that that was Alvaro Pardo and attempting to confuse him with another individual that had just done this to me? So, and when I try to think of who was it instead, it was possibly someone who looked like him, or maybe it was possibly someone else who had like dark hair. Could have been like Louis Free, maybe. It doesn't look exactly like Alvaro Pardo, but the person that they were saying that it had been, or that they were saying that Alvaro Pardo had been this person, and that person really sort of looked like him, but didn't very much, or altogether. So I really questioned why they were trying to throw me off base. Probably, if it's true, it was not Alvaro Pardo, you know, and I hadn't been lied to about the other Alvaro that I knew, who I believed was Alvaro Pardo. The main reason for trying to throw me off base would be in a situation to try to discredit me and say, oh, she doesn't remember who it was, and she mixes everybody up. I don't mix everybody up. And there are times that I don't remember exactly who it was, and I'm not sure, and I've pretty much clarified and stated when I have been a little uncertain about things. So, you know, the Bechtols were not really quick to try to, and the thing is they could be working for Alvaro Pardo all along, but by bringing someone in who maybe was not Alvaro Pardo and saying that was him, that would have been another way to provide a cover for Alvaro Pardo, and actual things that he did beforehand or later. So, one of the other individuals who showed up there at the bedside, where when they had Dixie sexually and Janet sexually molesting me, was Kevin Bowles. And Kevin Bowles is from California, and he's also from Washington State. He is currently working as a pastor for not the first time, but second time, in Coquille, Oregon. He's military connected, and he was definitely at the Bechtolds' house. And some of the men, when I was getting assaulted by the women, forced to lie on a bed, and then I was being orally assaulted, they were coming to the doorway. These different government men, like cops and other officials, were coming to the doorway of that room and standing there to watch. And some of them were masturbating. So basically, they'd stand at the doorway away from us. They'd be watching like a Dixie or someone sexually molesting me, you know, with my pants down, my legs spread. Here I'm this little girl. And the other woman not necessarily wanting to do any of this. And they were getting off on it. So it was pretty sick, some of the things they did. And Kevin Bowles wanted to be right by the side of the bed when that was happening. He was not just standing over by the doorway. He was right over there by the bed, and he took part in electrocution of me and attempting to quote-unquote program me with a bunch of other crazy ideas. And some of the other people that showed up at the Bechtolds' house included Scott, a cop that later worked for the Mount Angel Abbey and later approached me. Another one that I saw there, at least briefly, was Daniel, I think, just briefly. And then I did think about the Gatovs. The Gatovs were actually at the Bechtolds' house. So I don't know how they knew the Gatovs, but George and Janet Bechtold had Gatovs, like Josh Gatov, someone who raped me later. His parents or his uncle at their house in their living room, and I remember that happening when I was remember them being there when I was older. Like, for example, when we went there later, and I was held at gunpoint and told, and I started remembering things and having a panic attack, and was told to shut up, be quiet, that kind of thing. And cop came to the door. Well, Gatovs were there. So Gatovs were somehow connected to the Bechtold family and also to cops. And there were a few celebrities that were showing up at the Bechtolds' house. And I saw the celebrities, they were definitely the celebrities that I am going to say they were, because they were not just lookalikes. They were people that I had seen more than one time already, and they were celebrities. And Ballingers later tried to mix up their names and everything after they'd gone over to the Bechtolds. And I mostly saw them outside in the backyard. And they were always bringing over paper bags or talking about tapes or CDs. Like, they were involved in trafficking some of my music. And they were also involved in some other sort of organized government kinds of crime. And the individuals that I saw out there, I've already mentioned that Brad Old was one time in one of those rooms. Well, Brad Pitt went to that to the Bechtolds' house. He was in their backyard at one time. Briefly, I don't remember him being there a long time, but he was there briefly, and then he was at Ballinger's house another time. Leonardo DiCaprio was definitely 100%, I can confirm without any doubt. He was at the Bechtolds' house in their backyard. He sort of looked like, I mean, he had some traits that were similar to Brad Pitt, but he was obviously not Brad Pitt. And I specifically remember that he was one of the young men or individuals that showed up in our backyard, secretly, like, talking to people about different things. And another person who showed up in the backyard, who later then got connected to an Australian, and there were definitely some Australians that were involved in everything, was Keith Urban. And Keith Urban showed up in that backyard at the Bechtolds. And he was not, I don't think he was dating Nicole Kidman at the time, and I'm positive they weren't married. But he definitely, he didn't like me, and he asked me a lot of questions, and he was kind of coming from a southern end of things in Nashville. And at one point I was even trafficked over to Nashville when I was older, and taken to a lot of the places that where people were from, who came out to well, they were from like Nashville, Tennessee, that area, or they worked or coordinated things over there, and then they went to they were flying out to Washington and Oregon, sometimes California, to participate in what appeared to me to be possibly involving drugs, maybe. Definitely involving trafficking of my music and songwriting, and definitely involving human trafficking and torture of me, and who knows who else. So Keith Urban really did not like me. I remember he got into a conversation with me over there by Janet's flower bed in the backyard. And then, you know, later he was connected to Nicole Kidman. And there was an Australian that showed up there, but I'm not completely sure that I remember which one it was. But there was somebody who was from Australia that showed up in the Bechtolds' backyard when I was there, and doing some sort of secret something or other. And it was just all sort of shifty. Basically, like, they'd come over, they'd go out into the yard, they'd look at me and watch me, they'd whisper and talk to adults. Then they'd go into this one back room. They'd all disappear for a while, and I'd be out there in the garden by myself. And someone would come back out and talk to me again. It was just a strange environment. Like, it was kind of like people would act if they were showing up to exchange drugs, but it wasn't just dealing with drugs. It's dealing with, and I did see some drugs, actually, or, you know, like paper bag types of exchanges. But it didn't appear to be just about that. It looked a lot more like government and theft of my songwriting. And they definitely had an interest in me and how much I knew and what I thought about different people and that kind of thing. And where I thought, and if I was suspicious at all about what was happening and who was in charge or control of things. And two other men that showed up in the backyard, basically, kind of going between this one side room and talking to adults, and then showing up in the backyard and talking about things, were Brian Gross, Detective Brian Gross, and Anderson. And I don't think Anderson's slightly more of a vague memory. I just remember his name. I don't know for sure if he showed up in person himself or if his name was just referenced, but I definitely remember that his name was referenced, and definitely Brian Gross was there. So some of the other people, Raul Buhanda showed up one time for a short time at the Bechtolds' house, but it was for a very brief, short time, sort of at the doorway to George and Janet Bechtolds' bedroom. And at one point, Officer Wright.